Hello, everyone. I'm Sam. I'm Fifi, and we're back for another midweek musing. How you doing, Fee?
Not too bad. It's always a loaded question, isn't it, these days?
Never an easy one to answer either, is it? So it's just multiple stuff: happy, sad, confused, clear. Yeah, just all
Yeah, within the space of an hour, usually.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so better this week than last week. So obviously weren't here last wech because I just felt really quite off um on all levels actually. Just bit of a weird bug, or I don't know. I'm always a bit suspicious. I literally felt off balance. So not only in here, but just almost like a bit of vertigo. Not quite, but just feeling sick, and like whenever I moved around, and yeah, it was quite odd really for a few days. So I'm always questioning like what could be causing these things, but yeah, I'm feeling better now. So, and how are you?
yeah. I'm loving my new job, having a word of a time. It's
That's
yeah.
great.
So yeah, still personally a little bit like woo, but yeah, really enjoying my
Mm,
job and kind of focusing on that right now, which is good. But of course, at the moment, something that has been a big focus of mine personally, and I think you as well, um, and is being particularly kind of headlined this month is the COVID vaccine victims awareness month, which is
yes,
across the whole of January. Here in the UK, we've had, is it three rallies so far?
I think so.
Or is it two?
Edinburgh, it was Edinburgh, wasn't it?
Sheffield,
Sheffield, Birmingham,
Edinburgh, Sheffield, and Birmingham. And then
Bristol's
we've got
coming up.
Bristol's on Friday,
Yeah, and
and then London
London.
on Saturday.
Yeah.
I will be in London. So I will yeah, do some lives from up there. There's quite a lot of speakers,
Yeah.
predominantly some very, very brave people that have sadly sort of been quite significantly damaged by these vaccines, who are standing up to tell their story. And I think the important thing is it's not for pity. You know, it was said on
No.
Fiona was on GB News. Do you see that? See her on
Yeah.
GB News. Yeah, she's talking about,
Thinking
you know,
about
for them it's about raising awareness because, you know,
mm,
they've basically been left by the government, the media, even doctors, you know, are kind of no, they're being gaslighted, censored, you know, sort of told it's all in their head.
yeah.
But they've gone from being perfectly healthy people to kind of, you know, struggling with
Life
various
destroyed,
different,
really.
absolutely
Yeah. I mean,
life-changing
it's
injuries.
horrifying. It's just the stories coming out are
It breaks my
just
heart.
it's
I suspect
heartbreaking. It,
Saturday I will probably spend. I am a
oh,
very emotional person at the best of times, but all of this it really affects me, and I can sort of imagine myself on Saturday just sort of holding back tears, or I don't know, letting him go. You know, I suppose sometimes you've got to, but yeah, it does break my heart. It really does, and I think the worst part about it is that it is still being shoved under the rug. No one's trying to really, well, no one other than, you know, us in our community are really doing very much to help these people at all. Um, and yeah, they're still pushing this injection on not just people, but they've now extended it down to babies from six
oh
months
yeah,
old.
yeah.
You know, there is absolutely no justification for it whatsoever, and
It's
it is just
mind-boggling at this stage that anybody would consider um yeah, I mean we've seen like the booster program is basically dead in the water.
yeah. There's been a
Um
really low uptake,
it
hasn't there?
yeah, like really, really low.
But
So
unfortunately,
obviously that yeah, I
the
mean
amount
it's
of damage that's
done.
already
It that
been done. Um,
this is the problem, isn't it? But yeah, it's just shows the pure evil when they're still trying to push it. And like you say, a 6 month old that being recommended. I mean, it's absolutely it's so in your face. But again, you know, we can get into the whole, how can people not see? And there literally are different levels of awareness and consciousness, and that's how actually things that
Yeah.
we can see really clearly are literally invisible to some people who get everything from the mainstream. They've
Yeah.
never had that questioning nature either, so they're kind of already on another path completely. And these things just don't, until they are reported in the mainstream, which actually we are
We
starting
are
to
seeing that.
see with various people like Dr. Malhotra was on the
Yeah, which
BBC,
regardless, I know a lot of people have question marks over that, but you
which
know,
is
and
fair
I, you know,
enough.
it is fair
It
enough. It is
is.
fair enough, and you know, obviously he's swung from one extreme to the other, and there will always be kind of questions over that. But I think, you know, anyone who is getting any kind of truth towards, you know, and out into the public domain, I think needs to be supported. You know, whether, yeah, it's okay not to trust him, it's okay to have your own opinion of him, but at the end of the day, you know, it is about awareness, and anyone bringing that awareness, I think, you know, needs to be commended.
Or just,
In
yeah, even, or if you just have questions around the person, we just have to look at the information. If that information is correct and it's getting out there, I know that we can all go on forever and ever and ever about whether that's controlled, whether it's this, that, on the other. I don't know. Some days I think you just need to kind of look at things, take them at face value almost. Just like, okay, it's out there, so that's got to be better than it not
yes,
being
yeah,
out there,
I
is
think
what I'm
so.
trying to say. And I
And I've
don't
even
think,
seen the
go on.
same being on obviously the MP at the moment, who is speaking out sort of very, very loudly,
Mm,
and has been suspended from the Tory party, Andrew Bridgen.
yeah,
Um, I've seen people raising questions over him, and it does seem anyone who
absolutely.
does get any kind of coverage is being questioned. And whilst we understand that, you know,
Yeah,
question everything is
we
kind of the
have
motto of
to.
everyone these days. And
Mm,
yeah, absolutely we do. But at the same time, as you say, that information being out there is better than it not.
yeah,
And I think that's the bottom line. And as you say, there's a lot of people who don't know about all the damage that's been done. They don't understand, you know, how devastating this rollout has been for so many people. And I think, you know, that is the point again of um, this month, you know, and the rallies is kind of being out there, getting the visibility and telling
mm,
these stories and putting faces to those statistics, because, you know, you can be
exactly.
told
Yeah,
statistics, and yet, you know, until it's humanized, until you really see the people whose lives have changed forever because they thought they were doing the right thing.
yeah.
um
That's the thing. Again, it's just for whatever reason they just didn't have they either didn't have the information, they might have discounted it, you know, which is, but anyone who can, oh wow, serves you right then. I just, I'm sorry, like for me personally, I don't see that as, that's just like a full stop, isn't it? Where do you go from there? And why are we out on the streets? Why have we been trying to warn people? Who have we been doing this for? We've known we're going to be all right because we ain't going near it. But why have we been shouting so loud? To help to stop other people, like, and those very people that have unfortunately succumbed, to
they
then
need our
just turn
support, not a
against it.
smug "I told you so." It's not helping anybody.
It's not, and it's just, and we knew this was going to happen because we knew not everyone is aware of this agenda and what's behind it. We always knew we were in the minority. We knew that there were going to be, God only knows how many people affected by this. But if the attitude was always going to be, oh, well, you know, if you don't listen, well, it serves you right, then what was there's been no point to any of it. And as we're moving on with all of this, it's very much going to be people who have been either affected themselves, or a loved one, or people within their circles, whatever it is, more and more coming over to our side, if that's how we want to sort of delineate things. And how do we receive people? It's an important question, really.
It is an important question. I mean, I personally, and I know you feel the same, I want to support people. When people start asking questions, I want to be able to help them. I think we all know, however long ago it was, we started down this path of questioning everything, like literally everything, realizing that most of our lives, most of the information we've received has been utter bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a very, very dark place to be. And if you're coming at that from a place of grief, and also, from injury, or, whatever this injection has caused, if that's been the prompt to bring you upon this journey, and you start questioning, and it's a very difficult place to be. And I do kind of feel, certainly, that it's our role to be there to help and support, not to gloat and be smug and say, well, it serves you right, because I don't believe most people didn't have the information that they needed, as hard as we tried. Everyone knows how strong the censorship was. And I would kind of urge everybody to really kind of think, what kind of world do you want to live in, and what reception would you want if you were starting on your path now, starting on the path of questioning everything, and starting to realize that actually, the government are trying to kill us all.
Yeah. And the thing is, we're talking about normal everyday people. We're not talking about these bloody, foghorns on the internet wishing death on anyone who didn't take the jab. And absolutely, you do see karma playing out, don't you? Like this horrible, like vitriolic tweets and things. And
I've seen quite a few
and
lately.
then, like, the next one, oh, they've passed away. I'm not ever going to be like clapping and laughing over that, but that is a different thing from literally, just people like us, who weren't like trumpeting on and on and on about the judge, just quietly went and got it done, thought that was the right thing to do, everyone else was doing it, and so on and so forth. And now there's this horrific fallout, and that's what we're talking about here. And where do people go? Because they're no longer welcome with the
happy jabbers.
Exactly, yeah, the happy jabbers. And if they're being excluded from the so-called awake and aware bunch, like, and how do the stands fit in with that? Because obviously we're all autonomous groups. We're obviously we're the hub, we're the umbrella, but we're hundreds of groups of different individuals, and everybody's different. And how does it factor in?
Yes, I think it's an important point to raise. I think, if you look at any kind of footage from any rally, you will always spot the yellow flags, the yellow smiley faces, stand in the park. And a stand in the park is probably one of the most well-known kind of, regular meetups of people, where people can go to meet like-minded people for the first time. And it may be that they then go on to, different groups, organizations, hubs that have been set up within communities, because there are so many of them. But I think the Sunday mornings are very important, for kind of people who are looking to kind of take that first step into meeting people who, think differently, who are asking questions, who perhaps have some input and answers to the questions that they're now finding themselves with. And I think certainly from our point of view, that we would like the stands to be a welcoming place for these people, where you know a compassionate space is held for them, rather than them being excluded for having made the decisions that they've made. And I think for a lot of people who are starting to ask questions now, it will probably just be around the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
But it's a process and a journey that we've all been on, where we start at one point and we then start questioning everything else. So I did receive an email this week, which I was absolutely appalled at, to be quite honest, where there was a chap who went along, who had taken the injections, and he hasn't got to the point where he's questioning the other things. And actually, the reception that he received was not kind, I think, is probably the best way to put it. And actually, the distress that's been caused, he was actually asked to leave the group and told he was no longer welcome because he was clearly not awake. And I honestly, I absolutely appalled that kind of so-called awake people.
I hate that word now.
I know, and it's really, really difficult, and I think it does mean a different thing to different people. And I don't think it can be. But I don't know what other word to use. Do you know what I mean? There's
I know. Whatever you choose, it's like if you use aware, that kind of still ends up being.
It's difficult, isn't it? Language is such a complicated thing, but hopefully, people will kind of understand.
Oh yeah.
Sort of where we're coming from, but yeah, to kind of be booted from a place that
wasted opportunity as well, because if you've got someone who clearly, and we all meet them, I mean, some of the loveliest people I've met, you're just like, really? But they're professing their love for the royals or whatever, and I'm like, ah! But it's just, you cannot have a conversation. It doesn't have to be either that you're like, right, well, I'm going to tell you this and this and try and hammer, but it's just like, oh, you aware, if you want to go down that route or whatever, there's always that kind of opportunity, isn't there, to open up the discussion and maybe introduce a few, that there's a way of doing things so people don't feel attacked, and I certainly will hold views that other people were like, oh my god, what is wrong with her? Why can't she see?
We all do, and obviously, there are so many questions over so many different areas of history and
it's endless.
Literally everything.
And we all have our blind spots as well. We all have our little precious things, and we don't know what that ruined. And sometimes it takes a bit of time to be able to look at something and go, yeah, that was just bullshit as well, and move on through it. But yeah, I just think what a wasted opportunity to sort of explore. Well, why is it that you? Okay, so maybe you don't trust those jabs because you've clearly had a reaction or whatever, but you still trust these. Have you? I've got this information here. However it is that you could broach it, but there's a way of communicating, and I think for a lot of people, unfortunately, that they become quite myopic. They forget that broader, like a stand in the park, bring it back to us, it's a broad church. We've always said that. It's literally this umbrella. Come on in, like wherever you are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Here we go. And because we're standing in freedom and truth, that sort of allows for, Christ, he thinks that, but there's not that need for ridicule or disrespect, because we're all there to kind of learn and share and actually be there in the name of freedom, whatever.
That's exactly it. From my point of view, we're at a point now where actually anybody, I don't care kind of where you stand on things. If you are willing to stand for my right to choose what goes in my body, for my right to live life the way that I see fit, you know, as long as I'm not hurting anyone, you
Yeah,
know, if you stand for that, I don't care if what you believe is completely different to what I believe. You know,
yeah,
the bottom line is that we are at a point now where we all need to stand together and push back against
more than
everything that is
ever.
happening.
More
Absolutely.
than
And
ever.
as I say, it doesn't matter if we disagree on absolutely everything. If you're willing to stand there and push back against what's going on and say, I stand for your right to choose, I stand for your right to freedom,
Mm,
that is enough for me. And I think that should be enough for all of us, because we are all so different. We have all had, you know, differing information, differing experiences, different journeys, and we are all at a very different place in our lives. And you know, nobody knows anything for sure these days. You know,
no,
I don't think. I think
no.
it's very difficult to kind of draw a line and say that is the absolute truth. I think it is a continual journey of continually questioning things and researching and looking at the different opinions and trying to come to your own conclusion.
Mm.
And I think to kind of just discount anybody who kind of goes, well, I'm not sure about this, and you think, oh, how can you not? It's we're never ever gonna win if people are going to take the attitude of that we all have to think the same thing and believe the same thing in order to stand together. It will never happen. it
No,
it
not
just
in a
it won't.
million years. Not in a million years. And that, yeah, that is really it. I think probably as things have gone along and we're kind of at the moment out of that initial, the panic state when we were plunged into this nightmare, it was just everything was it was so up in the air and everything was turned on its head. I think there was more of a forget all the differing
Yeah,
opinions, blah, Christ, we've just got to get
yeah,
together, which is how we started. It's like, my God, just get everyone
yeah,
together and then we'll, and nothing's changed, like nothing, not anything of our very simple ethos has ever changed. It's still the same. But I think for some, as we're sort of trundling along through this, and there's an element of relaxing, I suppose, when you're not under the cosh of restrictions and guidelines and laws and blah blah. When things look, if you didn't know
yeah,
from the outside looking in, you'd be like, oh, it's sort of gone back to how it was before, the odd mask around, but really you wouldn't know. Of course, we know very different what's rumbling along through this whole thing, but still. And I think that's when people get more entrenched again in their own. You've got more time, I suppose, to kind of dwell on every little theory and are they legit, is this blah blah blah, I mean, it's endless. And to actually get a bit carried away with it all and to lose sight of the bigger picture again. But that bigger picture's never changed. It's
no,
always been that we must stand together in this, and it really does not matter whether people agree on every single thing. And some people you will be aghast at, my God, like they wow. But why do you have to express that and make it into, why can't you kind of internalize and see I think this is what, when we talk about awareness, it is that self-awareness. And how are we responding and how are we contributing, I suppose? What's our ripple effect? Are we trying to understand? Are we keeping that in mind or in our hearts the whole time, that we must be unified? We're not going to get on with everyone. They're going to be people that you find absolutely noxious at times, and you
yeah,
can't help that.
no,
Steer clear. I mean, unless people are really you know, that they are actually being abusive and aggressive and hateful and things like that, which would need to be handled really, you know, preferably within your group. We're all these autonomous groups, so we have to sort of learn to deal
And we
with
talk all the
things.
time about stepping into your power and standing up for what you feel is right. And I think that does begin at the very, very beginning of doing so within your daily life. And if you see behaviors or things going on at your stand, I think it
Mm.
is important. If you think it's wrong, you kind of need to call it out, but be conscious about the way you're doing it with a kind of view to conflict resolution as opposed to, you know, angry shouting, because how we can think we can kind of fight, you know, this
I
multi-billion
know.
pound propaganda
Brilliant.
machine that
Yeah.
wields all this money and power and has all the resources under the sun. How we think we can fight them if we can't kind of, you know, sort our own kind of little lives out. I do not know. I do not know.
No,
It,
me neither.
it really does start with all of us, you know, standing up for what we believe in and saying what to us is our truth and what we feel is right. Um, and
Yeah, and
I,
is
yeah,
it worth fighting over what a lot of the time it really is
we're
just
going to fight amongst ourselves. That was the point I was making. If we're going to
yeah.
fight amongst ourselves, what hope have we got?
And what's the fight about? How important is it? Because most of these spats and things are over really trivial stuff. It often just comes down to a differing opinion. And
And
like you
there
say,
are,
we
yeah.
don't know. Like a lot of the time, I've got my views on things and people, but they could still change.
I mean, there are points, you know, you meet people and they show you
Yeah,
an article or a study or a piece that actually does kind of change the way you think about
yeah,
everything.
yeah. It can
And we
always
have the
happen.
opportunity to do that for others, and others have the opportunity to do that
Mm.
for us, and we can constantly learn from each other, and we need to allow the space for that to happen, you know, like a kind, respectful place for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that people can't be fiery and passionate and get angry about stuff. Not at all. But it's just yeah, that space where it's there for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're like absolutely woo woo. It's all a bit bit like me. I seem to be like the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like there's a whole spiritual. Some are definitely more, you know, out there than others. And then you got all the way down to absolutely nuts and bolts, boots on the ground. This is the only way. Really staunch activist, which I happen to be as well, in a
yeah, yeah,
strange.
I straddle both as well.
I
Like
yeah,
I firmly believe that, like, the whole love and light and all of that
absolutely
energy
intrinsic,
frequency, it is all important,
along
but
with
we're not going to win this with just love and light, you know, like there does need
yeah.
to be, you know, the foot in the
We've
activist camp, and
got
actually the
exactly, and
action
then
behind it,
all the way in, all the way
everything
along,
in between.
in between. But there is a space for all of that.
Yeah,
There is a space for that. And like I say, if someone really gets on your wick, we see it within the stat, especially the bigger ones. You've always got this little grit. You gravitate, don't you? You gravitate to the ones that are kind of on your wavelength. But that doesn't mean that you don't want anyone else to be there because they're not. That's how's that ever going to work? And you have to look at that on a bigger scale. How's that ever going to
we
work if we just have
we
our
have said
little
so many times, you know, that it is going to take all sorts to kind of rectify everything that's
yeah.
wrong. It is going to take those people who are very focused on the love and light and the spiritual aspects, because I think there is a lot to be said for it in terms of how it empowers us to be the best version of ourselves, and to, you know, what we're putting out, to become more conscious and aware. And you know, you've got those hardcore activists that are really focused on what action we're going to take. You've got those
You
people
need
that are really
all of it.
focused on building new systems, you know, of education and health. And you've got people that have different passions, and all of those passions are going to be vitally important
Yeah.
in creating a better world. I don't think you can have, I mean, I can't have one without the other. You need them all. And
Yeah.
I do think it's important to recognize that, rather than just kind of dismissing us. Well, that's not helping us now, you know. I think
Well, you only
it
have to
is all
go
going
on
to help.
a rally or a march or whatever, and look at the absolute, I mean, the variety of people there. You couldn't possibly pinpoint.
No, no,
You know, you've got people of all ages, all ethnicities, all
they
backgrounds, all
are.
levels of income, and you know, it's beyond all of those kind of superficial characteristics and labels, and it's going to be the same within stands. And so, yeah, when there is that kind of, I think just remember what we're there for, and it is just standing for truth and freedom. And that can't just be what we consider
Yeah,
our own tiny little version. Well, this suits me and this would be my foot, but no, not that. It's got to be, like you say, the freedom to choose. So, and the informed choice, when we're talking about the jabs, that in the end, if someone's still like knowing everything, it's all laid on the table, it's absolutely, here you go, these are all the ingredients, this is what they do, this is what's happened to put blah 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 blah, and they still wanted to go and get it, well, that's your freedom, that's your
exactly.
choice. I might think, oh my god, and want to stop them, but it's that freedom of choice. And none of us want to be living in a bloody gulag. Like, let's just like take our eyes off all this tiny little stuff, but and look at what's actually happening. There will be another protest in February in Oxford, because we've got the
18th of
whole,
February for anyone that
yeah,
wants the dates.
we will be there,
We are both there, yes.
reunited at last, because it's been way too long.
It has been, it's been
It
so
has.
long. Can't wait.
So that's, but again, because that's, we've got the lockdowns. You have to whisper it because you're not allowed to say, but we all know what they are. I've just seen, so Wolverhampton, where I am, is being slated to be a smart city.
Yeah, there's 100 councils that have signed up to the net
Yeah,
zero
we've got
neighbourhoods and
Birmingham,
stuff.
which
So
is they want the double whammy, so they want to be a 15-minute city and a smart city. So they're really going for it. You know, things like this that are going to directly impact everyone. There's not going to be getting away from it. When you look at that and you're united in it, who gives a shit whether you think so and so's controlled opposition or they've like, this is real, this is happening. And so yeah, I think it's just we need to all be looking at the bigger picture again, and that automatically brings people closer together because you're united in that, and you're not just nitpicking over little things and your opinions. There are things way bigger.
yeah, there are. Yeah. And the bottom line is, you know, if someone is willing to stand for your freedom to choose, and you know, your freedom to live as you choose without hurting anyone, then
Yeah.
embrace that. Um, Stand with them regardless of whether you disagree on absolutely everything else, because the bottom line is that in every aspect of our lives, our freedom to choose what goes in our body, our freedom to choose the way that we live our life, is being taken away
Rapidly.
rapidly,
Mm.
and the majority of the world doesn't even see it.
Mm.
um so those of us that do, even if we disagree on everything else, yeah, it really is time to stop nitpicking, to look at the bigger picture, and to stand with anyone who is willing to put themselves out there and stand for our rights and our freedom and for the
Mm.
truth of what's going on in this world. So yeah, please do think about.
Yeah, 2023. Remember, that's what we want to make this year. 2023.
So yes, if you're in the UK, if you can make it up to either Bristol or on Friday or London on Saturday. London will be 1 o'clock at BBC Portland Square. Nearest tube station is Oxford Circus. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's
yeah. Yeah, please do get there if you can. I think it's really, really important that we show our support and raise that awareness. And then if you can get to Oxford on the 18th of February, the details are still to be confirmed. We'll put those out when we have them. But yeah, please do get to that one as well, because obviously, you know, once it starts in one place, very quickly it spreads.
Yeah,
we know.
we're
So
seeing it. Yeah.
the obviously, there's also a there's a freedom rally. If you're not in England, there is a freedom rally in Glasgow on the 21st, so on Saturday as well. So if you're up in Scotland and you can get to that rally, please do that. I can't remember the details off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
I think they're posted.
I have posted them in the group, and they're also on my page. But yeah, obviously 2021, the numbers we had at these rallies and protests was absolutely out of this world. Over 2022, we did kind of see them dwindle. I personally would really like to see them kind of going back up in 2023. So if you can, please do get to one.
And we've got more reason than ever, actually.
Yes.
To be out on the streets, because what's gone before is going to be nothing compared to what they want to unveil. So we've actually got more reason than ever to be making our voices heard and having our faces seen. And of course, it's always very much outreach as well on these things, where you are coming into contact with
a big
members of the public that might not have a
Yes.
clue, but there's definitely more and more people are receptive and actually wanting to know, because the inklings are getting stronger, I would say, within the population. So
yeah, we're running out of time, aren't we? Nattered away again. So yeah, I will see you on Saturday. I will I'll go live the main page while I'm at the rally. And yeah, sending you all loads and loads of love.
Yeah. Speak to you next week. Bye.